I figured it'd be a perfect time to discuss how it is and why it is that I chose the boat that I chose to be a lake boat, and some of the considerations that you should really be thinking about when you choose a boat for you to go out on such a thing like a lake. So generally you have a couple of different options, being a bass boat, pontoon boat, or a ski, open bow, bow rider, kind of stuff like that. And then you can get into like the go fast boats, speed boats with the cuddy cabins. But depending on how big your lake is, that becomes a factor. Do you have bridges to go under? That becomes a secondary factor on if you have to go underneath a bridge and you can't have something so tall or else the boat won't fit over it. So the overall length and also the depth of your lake, wherever you lake at, depending on the depth of it, will also play a factor. For the most part, unless you're on a smaller lake that has like a horsepower cap on how big of an engine you can have on that lake, then generally 18 or 21 is pretty much a good boat for most lakes depending on where you live. For this one though, if you do water sports, so I didn't choose a pontoon boat because I didn't really want to get into a pontoon boat, and then I didn't choose a bass boat just because I didn't want to get into a bass boat. I wasn't going to be doing a whole lot of fishing where I'm going to be using this boat. I got it more because there's friends, families, kids, that kind of situation that are going to want to go out on the boat, and so I got something that could be used for skiing, water sports, tubing, that kind of stuff. Real quick, we wanted to give a special thank you to Wholesale Marine, wholesalemarine.com. They're going to help us with this project, putting this all together, getting all the parts that we need for the boat, as well as the inboard and the stern drive, the outdrive, all the stuff that we got going on with this. So you can check them out. We actually have a discount code for you guys to get all the things that you need from your boat, all the safety gear, all the boats, or all the lines, all the anchors, all the stuff that goes in the boat. They have all that stuff that you can get, as well as get a little bit of a discount if you use our codes and the link in the description below. Now back to the video. Now, this Regal that I picked up, there's some bunch of stuff wrong with it. Obviously, I mean, it's me. I buy a boat and I fix it up, and that's, you know, how it goes. But the reason I chose the Regal, even though it was a little bit more than a lot of the other ones and it has more problems, there's one key factor that I liked about this boat, and that is the engine. And here's why. So I looked at a lot of other ones. There's a lot of decent brands, Rinkers, Regals, Caravels, stuff like that are pretty good boats, and you don't really have like a ton of issues with them. But when you're looking at an 18, 19, 20 foot boat, a lot of them, especially ones 80s, 90s, early 2000s, they have a 3-liter 4-cylinder engine in them. Very, very common. The issue with that is whenever you get into towing people, stuff like that, it's not, and then also if you got a lot of people, 18-foot boat, a lot of times you're putting 6 people in the boat, maybe a little bit more depending on the layout and whether or not you can with that boat. But the engine being the 4-cylinder, if you put 6 to 8 people in that boat, you might be struggling to get up on plane. Everybody's got to go to the front of the boat for it to get the plane out, and then it consumes more fuel, and then also it just it doesn't have a lot of power. Whereas this thing, especially if you're kneeing or tubing or anything like that, then you have to be careful with a, you know, smaller engine, because you put a lot of strain on it. The gimbal bearing and stuff like that, you can end up messing that up. Whereas this one being 20 feet, we could fit 8 people in the boat, and it's got a 5-liter V8 engine, which makes it very, very good for doing towing, kneeboarding. I could do wakeboarding with it, we could ski with it, any of that stuff. So it's really a good boat for that because of that engine. There are some stuff that's wrong with the drive, which we're going to get into it. Probably not going to get into it today, but in these upcoming videos, you're going to see that's going to be a big factor of the problem with the boat, because there's an expensive part that now we have to mess with, which I wasn't really trying to mess with. And then also the hull is all kinds of messed up, which you're going to see that, and what my plan is in order to fix that. But that was the main thing. And you might not think about it if you've just got kids and you're trying to tow, you know, kids on a tube, but a kid could be, you know, like we're talking 80, 100 pounds, depending on how big of a kid. And when you think about that, you put 3 kids on a tube, now all of a sudden you're looking at like 300 pounds back there that you're towing. which, you know, that's going to be a lot of strain on the engine, which is something that, you know, you might not be thinking about when you got the boat. And that is the big reason for getting the V8 or a bigger engine. Having a V6 or V8 that's going to allow you to pull multiple kids at the same time and not be causing a bunch of damage because you're doing it with, you know, a little 4-cylinder. But a 4-cylinder, if you're towing, you know, neat boarding a 80-pound, 100-pound person, one person, it's not going to have any kind of trouble with that. But when you start loading up the kids because they all want to go together, then it starts to become an issue. So those are kind of your options on how to choose one. But just remember that engine factor is something that you want to consider, because if you don't have enough power, the boat's not going to perform, and it's not going to do the things that you want it to do, which is the main thing that you want to know or be thinking about whenever you choose the right boat for you. If you choose something that can't perform the way you want it to perform, you're not going to have fun in the water, you're not going to get to do what you want to do, and then the people around you are not going to enjoy going out with you. It could become a point of contention and probably end up causing a divorce, depending on what the situation is. But that was the main thing that I had as far as choosing this boat and why I wanted it. I didn't want the inline 4. I wanted to get the V8. It's got a Chevy block, not got the Ford block, so multiple different things there that went into that decision, as well as the cushions not being in that bad of shape, because that was another thing. The engine is in decent shape. Got a problem with the drive that we're gonna have to mess with, but the cushions were not completely clapped out, and that is something that a lot of people don't realize how expensive it is, especially on like an 18, 19, 20 foot boat. You've got the cushions in the bow, you got the cushions around the front of the bow, you got the 2 seats for the passenger and the captain, and then you got the bench across the back, as well as the engine cover. So there are quite a few cushions that you got to mess with. And if you get into replacing your cushions, well, when you're choosing the right boat and you're on a budget, if you got to go out there and blow another $3,500, $3,000, or even $2,000 on a complete set of cushions for the boat, that is a massive expense that you weren't planning on having to mess with. That now you got to mess with that when you originally weren't going to have to mess with that. So that was another factor for me on this boat and choosing that. So basically, in order to choose which boat's going to be right for you, main thing is how are you going to use it, where are you going to use it, and how are the people around you and that you take out going to use it with you. That way everybody gets to go out and have fun on the boat. You just don't want to get a boat that you wear out or you don't have fun with, because then you're going to end up not enjoying going out of the water, and it's going to be not a good thing. Not sure what's going on here. A bunch of kids putting stuff in the street, trying to get stuff to get run over, I guess. I don't know what's going on in that situation. Anyway, that's how I chose the right boat for me and how I'm going to use it, and that should give you some things to think about whenever it comes for you to choose the right boat for you when you go out on a lake.